Alright, this video is going to be a bit of a rant video because I want to talk about Mateo and how much of a missed opportunity this one feature is for Pokemon Go. Recently, Niantic implemented this NPC character to show up at the end of your routes, and it's going to allow you to collect different gifts from around the world. On paper, that sounds pretty neat, and I did actually think this was going to be something good for Pokemon Go, but ultimately it ended up being a huge disappointment. I'm going to be talking about why that is in this video. Let's get right into it. Alright, it seems like it's been kind of a theme with Pokemon Go this year where Niantic is implementing a whole bunch of new features and a bunch of new things with Pokemon Go, and not a lot of players are actually caring about that stuff. Like, Mateo was meant to be something very exciting and very unique to Pokemon Go's route system, but yeah, not a lot of players are actually caring about it, and I think it's for a lot of good reasons. So first and foremost, let's talk about the lack of communication, because when it comes to Mateo, there's just a lot of question marks, and I really do not think players have a general sense of how this feature works. First and foremost, I was not able to get Mateo to spawn yesterday when this feature came out. I did about 15 different routes, and none of them spawned Mateo, which was incredibly disappointing. I did a bunch of research online to see what the problem was, and it seems like Mateo only spawns on the first route that you do, which of course I already completed before this Mateo event even started. I really think Niantic should have made it very clear that Mateo will only spawn on the first route you complete that day, and I do not think it's even a 100% chance that he will spawn. That's just very confusing. I really do not understand why Niantic made this feature work like this. Like, if they were to release Mateo early in the morning so that people can experience him before they complete their first route, I think that would have gone a lot better. But ultimately, not a lot of players were even able to get Mateo to spawn. And I really think that sets a bad precedent, because if Niantic is going to implement new features and they want players to try them out so that they could spread the word that it's exciting, well, they didn't really do that this time around, because Mateo was very much absent for a vast majority of players. Big misstep on Niantic's part right there. I really do think that in the future, if Niantic were to implement new features, they need to make sure players can actually experience those new features. Otherwise, it's going to be completely dead in the water. Like, just imagine this scenario right here. So let's say they implement the whole first catch of the day bonus today, and a lot of players are not able to get that extra Stardust and experience because they already caught a Pokemon before it goes live. That is basically how Mateo was released, and I really feel like that's incredibly frustrating. Like, for myself, I wanted to collect some footage of me interacting with this NPC for this particular video, but I was not able to do so because, of course, Mateo was not spawning. And I was not even aware of why Mateo was not spawning. Like, it would have been really nice if I had some kind of indicator that Mateo was not going to spawn for the rest of the day because I had already completed routes. Again, it comes down to Niantic's lack of communication. Instead of telling us how this mechanic works exactly, they gave a lot of vague descriptions of how Mateo works, and it's not helpful for a lot of players, especially those who actually want to experience this new feature. But of course, even if you were to get Mateo to spawn, I think a lot of players were reporting that it was completely bugged. Like, it would spawn for a brief moment and then completely disappear and you would not be able to interact with him. Like, what is going on over at Niantic? Like, the quality control is just abhorrent when it comes to Pokemon Go's new features. Like, anytime they release something new, it just seems like it's just full of a lot of bugs and glitches, and this has got to stop when it comes to Pokemon Go releasing new features. I mean, let's talk about routes, let's talk about party play, let's talk about Pokestop showcases. Like, a lot of cool stuff was added to Pokemon Go this year, and all of it was very buggy and glitchy when it was first released. I mean, a big example is Shadow Raids. That was something that a lot of players were looking forward to, and it was something that should have been really cool for Pokemon Go. And in my opinion, it currently is. But, of course, it does have some very unique mechanics related to these Shadow Gems, and it's completely glitchy. Like, it's still glitchy. Like, there's just a lot of times where I use a Shadow Gem or Power Gem or whatever they're called, and it doesn't even work. Like, the Pokemon is never subdued. I really do not understand why Niantic has terrible quality control. Like, they have all the money in the world, and they can invest into really good quality assurance, but they just seem to not choose to do so. And on top of that, it just seems like every feature that they release is completely rushed. Mateo really has no substance behind its design. Like, it's a really cool idea, having an NPC spawn while you're on a route, but there's really no point to Mateo spawning. Like, there's no reason for you to go out of your way to get this NPC to spawn. Like, yeah, it will give you a gift from around the world, so if you're someone who is actively looking for every single pavilion, yeah, maybe Mateo might actually be worth it for you. But ultimately, there's just no incentive. Like, that's one of my biggest issues with Mateo. It's a really cool idea on paper, but Niantic did not implement it in a way where I am actually excited about it. There's so many cool things they could have done with Mateo. First and foremost, they could have had it spawn in the middle of the route as opposed to at the tail end of it, and it could award you with some really special surprises, like maybe a couple of items that you could only get from Mateo. There could have been a lot of cool things with Mateo that Niantic could have tried out that I think a lot of players would have actually enjoyed, like maybe he will give you an extra Zygarde cell for that route if you come across him. Maybe they could have added something really cool where you battle Mateo at the end of the route so that you can collect some really special rewards. But ultimately, right now with Mateo, there's just no real incentive behind you going after this NPC. It's a real shame because I think this could have been something really cool for Pokemon Go. It would have definitely made routes something worthwhile because right now, routes is gameplay that not a lot of players actually care about. Like, there's players out there who basically completely ignore routes. They feel no incentive to do them. And I get that because when it comes to Zygarde cells, that's pretty much the only reason why you would do a route in the first place. But like myself, I think a lot of players don't even care about collecting Zygarde cells right now, and that is because the Zygarde that they got is low IVs, so there's no reason for you to go through all of that effort, considering that it requires an insane amount of Zygarde cells to get a Zygarde to its complete form. I really do not think a lot of players actually care about this mechanic right now. It's incredibly grindy to get enough Zygarde cells, and I feel like because the system of how you collect Zygarde cells when you complete routes is so vague and buggy, not a lot of players want to actually go through the effort and the trouble. So yeah, what do we do from here? Well, I really feel like Niantic needs to take a step back and implement better things in Pokemon Go. I think there's a good history of Niantic releasing features that players actually enjoy. For example, I think the Team Go rocket balloon where you fight Jesse and James, that was actually really cool when they first implemented it. It was very simple, it was very unique, and there was actual incentives for completing it because you could get some shiny shadows through Jesse and James. And you can get double the amount of mystery components. Like, there was just a lot of good things with this feature. It was very simple, it was very easily implemented, and it was very popular when it was around. So I don't understand why Niantic just doesn't follow that philosophy. They try to add a bunch of unique things that I feel like the devs actually care about, but these are things that the player base doesn't necessarily care about, at least a vast majority of them. I really haven't come across that many players who actually thinks routes is compelling gameplay. I just think this is just one notable example of how much Niantic is out of touch with their community. I mean, I really hope in the year 2023, instead of releasing a bunch of new useless features, they take what is currently in Pokemon Go and make it better. I'm talking about raid battles, I'm talking about the Go Battle League, gym battles, like have these systems improved instead of trying to create new systems that players do not care about. Gym battling has needed a revamp for a very long time. Ever since its first revamp, I feel like it has been the most stale gameplay that we've had in Pokemon Go. There's so many ideas that the community has thrown around when it comes to gym battling that Niantic has completely ignored. Like, how cool would it have been if you were to get special rewards for having a themed gym? Like if you were to have a gym and all of the defenders are, let's say, pink Pokemon, maybe you could get some sort of special pink Pokemon spawn, like an Audino or something. I don't know. They could have done a lot of cool things. Maybe they could have done something where if you have all of the gym defenders a unique color, you could get a rare candy when you feed berries to those Pokemon. Something like that would have been really cool, but Niantic has not done anything with it. Like, let's say you have one team take over a certain number of gyms within a specific area. Well, well, everyone on that team would get some kind of bonus. Something like this would have been really cool and it would have been really engaging, but Niantic just seems to be completely dry on ideas, and it's really disappointing and it's really sad to see. So yeah, going back to Mateo, I feel like this was just a huge letdown. There was a lot of cool things they could have done with Mateo, but they just chose not to do it. And yeah, it just feels like this feature was completely rushed. It feels like it's completely buggy. And there's just a lack of communication around it, which is going to frustrate players. I really hope Niantic gets a lot of positive lessons out of this whole experience, mainly because Niantic has been just really on a bad streak this year, and I really am hopeful for 2024 to be a lot better. But in any case, yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to share my thoughts regarding Mateo, and I do recognize that I went on a couple of tangents, but that's really the state of Pokemon Go right now. It's just in a really bad state. I really cannot say it any other way. But yeah, I would love to know your thoughts regarding Mateo in the comments down below. Do you actually think this feature is something cool? And is there a reason why you'd think that way? Is there something that I'm completely missing? I would love to know what that is down below. And yeah, let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. Let's go over my end of video spiel. If you ended up enjoying this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then make sure you go and check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons in my Patreon family, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way within Pokemon Go, like with remote raids or the friendship system, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. Also, if you want to support my channel without spending any money, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on these following platforms. Alright, and that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch y'all later.